Hi everyone, my name is Karishma Mehta, the first human at Humans of Bombay. Welcome to our first talk show, How the Hell Did I Do It? On this show, we speak with the dreamers, the pioneers, the go-getters, and the never-say-noers from all walks of life. We discuss their journeys, the highs, the lows, and even the blows. And through our conversation, we get pretty close to figuring out how the hell did they do it. In this episode, I catch up with a dear friend and someone who is today a global icon, influencing an entire generation, Diipa Khosla. When Diipa and I started talking, we had a meeting of minds where we talked about shattering the glass ceiling and breaking the mold as women in business. She even gave us an insight into her love story, a beautiful marriage between two cultures, and raising baby Dua, who's now more famous than she is. Running a business, impacting young minds, taking care of the family, and doing it all so seamlessly. Diipa is here to tell us, how the hell did I do it? I'm so grateful to be doing this today with Diipa Büller-Khosla, who's also a friend, and incidentally, we're meeting for the first time after being chatting, I think, for 2 years plus. So, lovely to meet you.
So happy to be here.
And
so happy.
You've brought the rain with you.
Have I?
It's been pouring, but we've all made it and we're here.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be doing this. And thank you. Thank you so much for taking out the time for us.
A pleasure.
I'm going to go straight into it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to start with little Diipa, okay? What were you in your formative years? I know that you moved around very much.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like? From Delhi to Chennai and then Ooty? Paint me a little bit of a picture.
So I think growing up, the little Diipa was definitely an ideas girl. I remember this one faint memory of us in GK in Delhi, because we lived in Delhi. And outside the house, like looking down with my brother and sister, being like, ये कैसी जिंदगी है लोग इधर से उधर चलते रहते हैं and then they were like what is and I was like 8 or something and I was quite the philosopher back then already being like what is the purpose of life, like what are these people doing, da, da, da. So I think the little Diipa was always full of ideas and full of like wonder, and then indeed my parents' job took us from Delhi to Chennai for a little stint, to then Ooty, where we went to boarding school, to an international boarding school, where just the world opened up. Like I think I started at the boarding school at 12. So from 12 to 18 when I left, it was just our little Harry Potter bubble, I like to call it, because our dining room was like the same as Harry Potter. We had these students from international backgrounds, and like my best friends were Korean or Australian, or, like from a young age, I just got this like big exposure. And that was like my first phase of really understanding how globalized and how small the world actually is, and how people ultimately were all the same. So I think moving around a lot created something in me, that this like need for adventure constantly. Like even when I live in Amsterdam, for too long I'm like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah.
What's the next place? So yeah, I think that was a little bit of an insight into little me. Yeah.
And you've seen this strong woman in your household. That's always an inspiration. It serves an inspiration.
Like, my mom, I could talk about for the next hour. She is just, I don't know how she did it all. Like how she was always there as a mother somehow. And always there for her clients and patients, and always good at business, and somehow would make the best food and be a wife. Like, how did she do it all? I'm still in shock of that. But yeah.
Well, you're doing it all. We'll get to that. But I guess it carries forward in the genes.
Maybe.
And it came across in our research that your initial schooling actually was from a Hindi medium school, and then you moved to an English medium school.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because, sometimes that does lead to a bit of a, especially we've heard of anecdotes where there's a little bit of bullying, a little bit of sidetracking. Any of those things that have happened to you, I'd love to know.
Yeah, actually, yeah, indeed. No one's ever asked me this question, but it's true. So the first 12 years of our life, we just spoke Hindi fully at home. And it was just like, that was our language to go. And then at 12, when mom and dad put us in boarding school so they could both work, the initial first months was very difficult. Like, because I didn't understand what they were saying. They all with their like Firang accents, and now, okay, I had to. But back then, as a 12-year-old, I'm like, what are they saying? So, you know, sometimes when people mock me for my accent, they're like, but you're Indian. Why do you have an accent? It's because I learned English this way in the school. It's this kind of international, messed up accent that is sometimes Hindi, sometimes British, sometimes, like, it's just a mixture, right? And this is how I learned English. But so indeed, the first few weeks of that school, I remember the teachers would ask me or the students, and I just would kind of speak in broken English, and I was mocked for that. And even, you know how in Indian schools, when the teacher asks you a question, you stand up and answer? So I would do that in this international school, and I was mocked so much for it. Like, look at this suck up, standing up to answer, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was good. It toughened me up, and it you know, gave me a fire. And since then, every time something negative happens in my life, I just use that as fuel to like motivate me even more to become better, because that made me learn English the best I could and become really good at it. And yeah, I think bullying and any negative memory since then for me became something I always turned around.
That's amazing.
So it was a good learning experience.
So who was your role model while growing up? Who did the little Diipa want to be like while growing up?
I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but my mom. But honestly, like, I've never, I don't know, like, growing up, you know, I had this weird thing where when other people would look at celebrities or actors or actresses, I never saw them so much as role models. I saw them as people who've done a fantastic job in their life. And I always was like, wow, commendable. But I'm like, I can do that too. You know what I mean? So it was never something I was like, whoa, this is so insane. Let me be your fan follower. But my mom is, because she was so close to me, her character I saw through everything. Like, when I always, as a young kid, knew celebrities, you see a aspect of them, a perspective that they show and put out into the world. But true role models require you seeing them in all facets of life. Like, how do they do climbing up the mountain, not just when they've reached there, you know? And so with my mom, I saw it all. And I saw her, like, through character, like, shine through every aspect, the hard, the easy, the good, the lows, everything. And so I think it would go back to her. She would be the role model.
And what did you want to be? So what was your career graph? We know you studied law. But what did you want to be, and when did the career ambition bug kind of bite you?
Career ambition. So the business bug was there. I was always an entrepreneur. I think it's nature and nurture both. Punjabi family, like Gujarati family, you know, like business is kind of like around us since we're kids. So that was there. But I also, as a person, was very much like, I have an idea, I need to make it come to life. Like, to me, that was business, making ideas come to life. And I remember even when I was a teenager, I made, like, during Friendship Day, like this friendship bracelet business with other students in my class. I'm like, okay, you guys all make a bracelet and I'll give you this much and then we'll sell it. And they were like, what is she talking about? So I think that was always there. But indeed, being a good Indian girl, I was first like, I need to study. I need to be an academic. Law came onto my path because it was just something that intellectually stimulated me, you know, solving problems and constantly finding a way to finding a solution to something was really that kept my brain excited. So I loved law. But once I studied it, I realized, okay, this is just too much hard work in the sense of, I saw my other law friends, they would enter their office on a Tuesday and leave on a Thursday looking wild. And I'm like, I also want a good life. You know, I also want it on my own terms a little bit. And the thing is, I studied human rights law for the impact it could have. And then when Instagram fell on my path, I'm like, I could have that impact here as well. If at the end of the day, it's about impact, I could do it on a policy level with human rights law, or I could do it on a human level on social media. And so
but
I think
we've skipped very much ahead. We're still at little Diipa. Who did you want to be like?
I think little Diipa, Business.
Business.
Yeah.
Okay. And you
Simple
decided to
answer.
study law from the lens that, it's academic and you would be able to make an impact, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And what was that moment? At which point did you decide, in law school that this is probably not for me?
It wasn't actually in law school because I still found it very interesting. It was after when I finished. And I think my friends all started working already. And it was at my internship as well, actually, that I did at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. That's when I realized this is amazing, but it takes a lot from you. It really does. Like, I'm like, if I also want to have friends and family and everything, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm willing to give that commitment of the joys of life already this young, work really hard for the next 20 years, and then maybe later when I'm like 40, 45, be able to close a case that could have some impact. And I think perfectly timed social media fell on my path at that point. So,
and when you were in this phase of your life, or even when you were younger, were you always an extrovert? Were you out there? Were you shy?
I wasn't, actually, surprisingly. I think deep down, I was, but I was too insecure to let it out.
Right.
And that the confident woman you see today is hours of self-help books and hours of putting myself outside the comfort zone and like hours of taking one success and making it another to at one point be like, I'm pretty awesome. And it took me a while to be even able to say that, because you're like, be humble, don't say you're awesome. But it's a lot of self-work, for sure. Yeah.
And how did it kind of begin to start changing? Was it when you went to boarding school and you were living away from your parents that kind of influenced this? What was that process like?
Boarding school, no. I was still quite like insecure and bullied, and I was starting to blossom, but not enough. I think what boarding school really taught me was education. It really taught me the meaning of friendship and the international world, and like really learning about those things. But it was after boarding school that the true kind of transformation began, and it was in my gap year. It was a hard year, actually, because all my other friends had started university all over the world, and my dad was kind of like, no, you need to learn the family business and like be here and stay at home in India while the rest of your friends are gone. And I think that year, again, the hardships of that year really pushed me to be like, I need to be so good that I get a scholarship and that I go abroad and that I really make a mark, you know? So I think that year I read a self-help book every half a month or so, and really worked on myself. That's also the year I learned about manifestations, and I think I was 18, and the law of attraction and everything, and really took that year to build the woman that I am today. And so again, out of hardships came out something really beautiful.
So it was in this year, this gap year, that you applied for a scholarship and got it to your law school in Netherlands.
Yeah.
How was your reaction to that, right? Because after a pretty disappointing year where your friends are abroad and studying and you're back in India, how did that feel and how do your parents react?
I gotta go back to that moment. I think I was very, very relieved so that I could finally go and do what I was meant to, and like also experience uni life, you know, and just enjoy it. Like enjoy the partying, enjoy the da-da-da. And funny enough, when I was leaving, my mom almost gave a prophecy, which at that point I didn't believe. She was like, you're gonna find the man you marry at university.
What?
And I was like, huh? And she's like, for some reason, mom's like, I feel it. You're going to find the man you marry at uni. And I'm like, huh? Okay, whatever, mom, it doesn't matter.
You don't argue with the gut instinct.
Exactly, but I didn't really take it seriously. And I was like, a Dutch guy in Holland? Like, no, that's not my thing, you know? And funny enough, Oleg is the very first guy I met on the very first day of uni. It's crazy. It's like you can make a Bollywood movie out of it. But I got out of the car and like my parents put my luggage there and like, good luck with university, bye. And they left. And then this guy who looks like James Dean is like walking up to me and I'm like, what? And I'm like no makeup and a hoodie just from, you know, the plane. And then he today is my husband. It's crazy.
That's wild.
It's yeah.
The universe is very mysterious.
It is. It is. But that I always remember Mom saying that before I left to go. So I think we were all very excited.
And once you were in college, I'm assuming you started thriving because you're there and you're studying and you're living this global life that you kind of saw when you were in your boarding school. So after you studied law, this little bug was brewing in you that maybe it's not for me. Tell me your first tryst with social media and Instagram, and what was that like?
So when I first started going to uni, I was very much an academic. Social media was nowhere near sight, nothing. I didn't even think of that. It was very, like my student house, like in the board, like the bulletin board, I had a paper that said GPA 4.0, no boys, no partying. I literally wrote that. Such a typical Indian girl, like go pray and just get academics. I was very focused on education and like just getting good grades. And of course, as time went by, I got lured into, having fun and parties and all that stuff too, which I'm very grateful for as well, the good memories made there. But it was at the end of uni that for the first time, I'm like, I want to do an internship that's not academic. And I asked my brother, I'm like, do you know anything? And he actually was the first one to introduce me to Instagram back in the day when it really was not popular. And he's like, Deeps, you should try this. It's fun. You like fashion and beauty. Maybe try this new app. And I was like, no, I don't have time for this. Facebook is fine. God, should not have said that. Because if I would have even come to Instagram 6-7 months earlier than I did, it would have made a big difference.
First move advantage is everything.
100%. So, and then he's like, my friend of mine has this agency in Amsterdam. Maybe you can intern for him. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it turned out being one of the first Instagram influencer agencies in Europe.
Wow.
I had no idea. Yeah. So day 3 there, I'm closing a deal for Chiara Ferragni for Mango, the fashion brand, for this ridiculous amount of money back then already. Like a few brands had seen the power of it, And I'm like, who is Chiara? What is Mango? Like, what is going on here? Like, I was just shocked.
Like, why is she making so much money?
Why is a student in Italy making so much money? And remember Christina Bazan and like a few...
I follow Chiara very, very religiously. I love her kid also.
Yeah,
Kids now.
But so like it was for me this whole new world. And then I remember after that 4-month internship, it just didn't leave me this whole world of social media and the media landscape changing. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I think that was the moment I'm like, I need a bite of this. The bug has bit me. Yeah. Something is happening to the world at large, and I need to be a part of this.
Yeah. Okay, so $1 million question. What was your first social media post ever? And when? And we're going to insert a picture of it.
That one is tricky because I don't know the first one, which was like from me as like a person, or when it became a professional Instagram page. You know what I mean? Okay. Like back then it was the same thing. Like Diipa Khosla, I was just doing like, look at my life. And then at one point it became like Diipa Khosla, the influencer. But I do remember my first paid post. And that was for €200 by Paul Hewitt, which is like... it was kind of like a Daniel Wellington type.
Oh, wow.
Back then. And I was overjoyed. And €200, I'm like, oh my God, €200 is so crazy.
After how long did you make this?
1 year.
Wow.
1 year of not getting anything. But also it was back then, brands didn't understand it, So I really had to educate them on the power of it and really be like, hey, if you pay a magazine, that's how many people view it. Look at how many people are viewing my content. Like,
so let's start from the beginning, right? So you decided to become Diipa Khosla, the influencer, and you've made these plans and everything. What next? A, how were you supporting yourself financially? Because it did take a year for it to kind of come into fruition. And B, how many followers did you get at the end of 1 year? From zero, obviously.
Yeah, so financially support, at that point I was still studying my master's in London. So it was my mom actually for the first year. And it was very much like living on the edge, like I really didn't have any money to do anything extra. I was just like making sure you just get by. And I even remember promising my mom, like, Mom, remember everything you're spending on this year, I'm going to give it back to you. I promise. And she was like, no, 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 it's all for my children, da, da, da. And I did. I did give her back for everything that year. But so it was mom supporting me for that year for sure. But I was living like a poor student. And so after that year, it went from me earning basically nothing to a year later being like a very rich student. Like it just went real fast. So I always like joke with my team as well. Like I've never had a job. I went from student to being a full-fledged businesswoman within a year. But it was because of that crazy hustle period that I had to do. Yeah. And for that, my parents fully supported me 100%.
So run me through a day. You were doing your master's in London. How were you building this on the side?
In the evenings and weekends, and like one story that my husband always loves is my mom was my first investor, I call her. She gave me 200 pounds and she's like, here's your investment into blogging or whatever you're doing. And I was like, okay, thanks, Mom. And I went to Zara and I bought an entire outfit with the 200 pounds, kept the tags on, shot the outfit, returned it in pristine condition, and did that over and over again for the first like 7 months or so. Wow. But just like every time taking it and then quickly shooting the look and then giving it back, you know? And because I just, of course, could not have afforded so many different outfits. And that investment definitely came back to Mom like tenfold very soon. But that's how it happened, really.
And after you, how many followers were you at?
I think not very many, like maybe 50,000 or so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so what happened, or there were a few peaks. Instagram was very new. Yeah. So follower growth was like insane.
No, but back in the day, 50,000 was a lot.
Yeah.
Like today, it's very different.
Well, in comparison, when I was 50K, people like Kiara and stuff were already at 600 or 700.
But in the Indian market, like Indians were still skewed into Facebook. I still remember as Humans of Bombay, when we started in 2014, I just started it on Facebook.
Yeah, true.
And not on Instagram.
True. And I was posting on Facebook a lot as well.
And I adopted on Instagram only 2 years later, when I could have also begun the same thing on Instagram, but I just thought like,
what is this app? Yeah. No, true. So Instagram in the West already was quite happening. So for me, the tricky part in the beginning, like formative years of my career on Instagram, was India did not understand what I was doing. Like every time I came back and I was like, I'm an influencer, they were like, stylist? I'm like, no, it's like a different thing. And I think the name influencer wasn't even a thing then. I was like, I think I said Instagram blogger or something. Yeah. And they just did not understand that. And so for me, the first few years, I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on the West, focus on the Desis there because they get it. And when India comes up to it in 2-3 years, I'll be back, you know, type of thing. And that was very strategic as well. Like focus on the market that understands, give them the representation, and then come back to the home market and be like, guys, look at how big I made it there, you know?
And what was the chatter around this move, right? You've studied law. You're an Indian girl who's studied law and then done her master's from London and then started this Instagram thing effectively. So what was the chatter? Like, what did people say?
As you can imagine, all the aunties and uncles were like, kya kar rahi hai? Like to my mom, and Punjabis also, like they're a bit extra. Like they're all like, what is this girl doing? Has she lost her mind? Is she not smart enough to continue? Like all the bullshit, of course, came out. But also funny thing was my friends. Like I was very highly educated and a lot of my friends were like, what happened to you? Like, why are you taking photos for a living, you know? And even many years later, when my husband is a diplomat and I would meet his diplomat friends, they'd kind of be like, so what do you do exactly? And there was a bit of this judgment always of like, are you smart? Like, can you hold a conversation?
Is this a real career?
That too. Is this a real career? What is she doing? Pastime, blogging, da. And all of that was there. And again, like I said, I turn all of those negative things into like, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you that
Yeah.
this is real,
Yeah.
and that this is worth it. And again, for me, the thing that constantly kept me going was wait to see the impact. Like that word was constant. It's like, yes, I'll make a lot of money. Yes, it's going to be, I'll travel the world, da, 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 da. And I love all that, let's be honest, every girl does.
Yeah.
But it was really like, wait till I show you the impact this can make.
Yeah.
Like a young girl armed with her smartphone can like meet so many minds on social media. It's crazy.
No, influence so many minds.
Yeah.
That's so. Yeah, and I totally relate because I remember when I started Humans of Bombay, it was just a Facebook page.
Yeah.
And it was not considered a career option.
And look at you today.
Yeah, no, and like today it's like everybody gets it, right?
Yeah.
Even aunties get it, even uncles get it because they're all on Facebook. So it's all about holding the vision, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what's the journey been like from 50,000 to 1.8 million? I don't know the exact figure because I can't see it, but I know it's 1.8 million on Instagram. What's that journey been like? Walk us through it, in tranches.
Okay, phase one, like I always say, was the hustle phase. There's so many anecdotes I could come up with for that phase, but it's just a phase where I just felt like a hamster on a wheel who was just meant to do stuff, like go, meet, network, email. Everything was just like, and put your head down and just for a year and a half, I think even 2 years, just do that, because everyone has to go through the trenches, no matter what career. If you want to be big, put in the hours, whether that could be for photographers, videographers, just shooting, like become good at your craft, right? So that was the first, I think 18 months to 2 years even. Then became the phase of like the small wins. It was like the first paid deal or the first influencer trip or the first, and I cherish those so much.
What was your first influencer trip?
The first influencer trip I think was with this brand called, it's that lingerie brand, the Italian one. What are they called? Intimacy Me. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that brand.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Intimacy Me.
Chiara does that as well, right?
I think so. I think she's a brand ambassador for them now. Yeah. It was the first trip, and they took me to Sicily, and I was just wowed by all of it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here with other influencers. I'm gonna take content. It was very, very exciting, and just also the whole journey around it, the way they treat you so nicely, and everything was so nice, and you get to meet other like-minded people who finally are like, I get you.
Yeah.
I understand you do this for a living, so do I. And that also I think was something I needed because it was kind of a lonely journey in the beginning, especially as an Indian.
Yeah.
There was nobody else as an Indian doing it. So so the second phase was these small first wins. Then the next phase became the phase of the breaking barrier phase, I call it. I think at that point I realized the power that was within me for being that representation of an Indian globally. And I'm like, okay, now I got to make this count. It wasn't just about me, it was about all of us. And so like the first billboard, the first person on a cover in Condé Nast Traveler in India, the first Cannes Film Festival, that became, I would say, the glory days. Everything was just, even manifestation-wise, just falling. It just pouring. It's like opportunities were everywhere I turned. And it was like, I have goosebumps talking about it now because it just was crazy. It almost felt like God's like, girl, I got you. Like, I got you. It's just, I'm going to give it now, And he was giving a lot. And I was gratefully seizing every opportunity and just being so grateful for everything and doing my best and working very, very, very hard. To a amount that comes the next phase, I think I worked too hard. And in my case, I was lucky that as I was reaching my edge, I noticed in like many different ways, like my eyes started twitching. I started having weird panic attacks, and like it was too much work. It was like at one point I was traveling from LA back to Mumbai to then go back to Holland for like 2 days to then fly to Italy. Like it was just too much.
You can't keep up.
No. That's when the world stood still. The pandemic. I just came back from Milan Fashion Week, and it was March, And I slept the entire month. I was so tired. And yeah, I think the phase now, after that phase of resting, recalibrating, and thinking, is this new chapter of what I am doing today.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
So how did it kind of, I know we've done the story on Humans of Bombay of how you and Oleg kind of got together, but can you take us through it after the first day of college? And I know that it was not in college that you dated, it was after, right?
Yeah.
It was after college that you dated.
Correct.
So, and at what point in your life did this happen? Because if you were working so aggressively, how did this happen, and how did it kind of, you know, stable, ground you, or make you, you know, think that you want a more balanced life? You want the work, but you also want the home.
Yeah. So indeed, I met Oleg at uni, but he was in his senior year.
Okay.
When I just started. So we overlapped for not very long. Like, he graduated soon after, but we always kept in touch on Facebook. And we would just, you know, tell each other happy birthday every year on the, what is it called? DM?
Facebook Messenger.
Yes, thank you. Facebook Messenger, we would say happy birthday. And that one fine year, many years later, so then he graduated, moved to London to study diplomacy. I graduated 3-4 years later, then moved to London. So our London years also didn't overlap. So only when I finished in London, or was finishing towards the end, he wrote, I wrote happy birthday to him 1 February in his birthday. And then the conversation became a bit more, because also for the first time, he was single and I was single, you know, so it became a little bit more flirtatious. And then he's like, okay, whenever you're back in Amsterdam, I'd love to take you for a meal, da, da, da. But I, at that point, was indeed quite busy in life, but also I like not being so available for a boy who's just like, come date me. And I'm like, you can wait. If you really want me, you can wait. So I made him wait for many months until the end of July that year. So from February to July. And eventually I'm like, man, the sucker is really on it, you know? Because I'm like, if you want to date a person, be serious about it. Don't just be like, date, da, da, da. And he was serious. So then in the end of July, I met him in 2015.
Where?
In Amsterdam, in this like beautiful restaurant by the canal, and a late summer evening. Like, it was perfect. And on that first date, I think we both knew.
Oh, sweet.
It was like, we spoke for 3 hours about everything on like same vibration as well, you know, and like finally someone who like thinks like you, has emotional intelligence, like you, looks at the world in a similar way. It was just too many touch points that I think I left that night being like, whoa, is he the one? Like, so crazy.
And how old were you?
25.
You were 25.
Yeah.
And how did your parents and extended family back home take it, you know, when you did start seriously dating him?
They loved him.
Okay.
They really did. There were a few, I think, comments here and there about like, why can't you find an Indian guy? Our Indian guys are not good enough, blah, blah, blah. But I think when you meet Oleg, you see what a beautiful presence he has, and like he can charm everyone, you know. So he charmed my entire Indian family, and my mom and dad adore him. And also he's very, very culturally respectful. So he never came in being like, I'm the Gora and I'm gonna be like dumb Gora, da da da. Like
Dumb Gora.
like, you know, like people are like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. He never was like that. He was always very respectful. Like from day one, he already just started touching my parents' feet, you know.
He also
like,
touched your feet at the wedding.
At the wedding.
That's again some, I think Humans of Bombay loves you. Every phase of your life, single, dating, marriage.
No.
Dua even.
Yeah, we have to do a proper dua segment with her alone. But no, he was just so culturally respectful to everything that we stand for, that they really loved him. And indeed, online, I did get some trolls and hates and, you know, closed-minded comments. But it didn't affect me because I knew, like, our love was true. So everything else can be secondary. And yeah.
And how did he ask you to marry him?
Oh, God. In the most insane way. Okay, I'm going to make it in a nutshell because it's a rather lengthy story. But so what happened is during our initial months, I told Oleg about this red dress dream I recurringly had. And the dream was kind of like a vision or a manifestation of my future, where I'm like, I would be doing a red-eye flight from New York. And in my head, I had the Met Gala. Like, I'm like running up the stairs of the Met in this red dress. And the vision is that my husband and I are hosting an event, like a charity event. And then in the room, I walk in and then I look around and I spot my partner because I'm late. And that partner never had a face until I met you. You know, and that's what I once told him, this romantic evening together, da, da, da. He remembered that. He recreated the red dress dream for a proposal.
Wow.
It's crazy. So I got this email from Vogue, India. He, I think, either faked it or asked someone in the team, I'll never know. But I got this email that looked very real from Condé Nast, saying they have a Christmas dinner in Udaipur in India and that they would love to invite me. And in 2015, I was still a budding influencer. So for me, it's like, oh my God, Vogue India, let's make that Christmas dinner, da, da, da. And I forwarded the email to my husband, who was then in Baghdad, in Iraq, serving like as a diplomat. So then he wrote back being like, wow, amazing. I've never been to India, so perfect. Let's make this into our India trip, you know? All great, great, great. We booked our tickets, da, da, da. Then the day arrives. A few days before, he calls me from Iraq being like, babe, I don't think I can make the Vogue event. And I'm like, what, why not? And he's like, oh, state secret, da, da, da. Some bullshit. Like, I can't tell you, I can't make it. I'm like, oh no, okay, but I need to go with the +1, da, da, da. So then I'm like, none, come with my sister. I'm like, come with, you're gonna come with me on this Vogue dinner. And then, because it was a Christmas dinner, the dress code was red or green. And I would never wear green. So he knew red is my favorite color of all time. So I wore this beautiful red dress. Then the day arrived, we went in this car, and the taxi driver is missing because I had to be late, remember, from the story? So he forcefully made the taxi driver come late, so I would be late to the event.
Oh my God.
And then we finally arrive in this beautiful palace, Devigar, do you know that one? It's with beautiful stairs everywhere. So we arrive, and there's like a photographer there, and like the hotel manager's down. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm late for the Vogue event. I thought that was paparazzi, and I'm like posing and everything. I had no idea. And then I'm like going up the stairs and more stairs and more stairs. So a red dress on the stairs and late. And then finally I'm like, it's very quiet. Where is the dinner? And then at one point I land into this open courtyard. My sister leaves my side. The manager like leaves my side. The photographer's gone. All of a sudden I'm like standing alone. I'm like, okay, forget it, I'm late. I just keep going. And there's like candles all around the courtyard and this flute playing. And at the end I see this white guy in a tuxedo. And I'm like, I look up at him and I look down because it's like quite dark by then. I'm like, oh, he must be the waiter. So I literally keep walking towards him, and then I look up again and I'm like,
what are you doing?
Just shocked. I'm like, wait, what? What? And like the first 2-3 minutes, I'm just shell shocked. And he learned from a friend of his that when you surprise someone, give them a minute. Like, don't start doing what you got to do because the person is completely shocked. And I was just like, wait, you're in India? You're not in Baghdad? Wait, what? Da, 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 da. And then he just like let me have my moments, and then he went down on one knee, and then and then asked me, and then
girls everywhere are going to use this as a reference point.
Know. I'm sorry for the boys, but it was very cute.
No, that's really sweet. So this was a high point in 2015. And in 2016, it was a bit of a low because it came up in our research that you did face rejection because of your skin color. How was that? How did that happen? How did it make you feel?
So I think 2016 is meant to be in my story the year that everything starts looking up, right? And a lot did, but as with everything, sometimes you come across people or come across moments that people are just so close-minded still. And funny enough, being Indian or being not the whitest Indian, you still get either, rejected or catcalled or whatever. And I'm not going to mention any names or anyone, but even like brands that should come up to the standard of the world we live in, the fact that they see Indian next to you or they see how you look, they're like, she probably can't be classy. She probably can't work the red carpet, or she probably can't da 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 da. And it's so strange and so sad that, you know, front row fashion shows have been rejected to me because of that. Campaigns have been rejected. Red carpets have been rejected just because they wanted an aesthetic of the skinny, pale Caucasian.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was so like crazy to me that I'm like, really, in 2016? But even 2022, it's it's really shocking sometimes. But again, to me, it was again like, all right, it's a rejection.
Gonna turn it around.
Watch me. Yeah.
And
watch me build a brand, actually. Not even watch me come back to you and become your model, but watch me build a brand that changes that narrative, you know?
Yeah.
But
And in 2018, you did turn it around. You were the first Indian to walk the red carpet at Cannes. So how was that? How was that process? How did it feel?
You know, to be funnily enough, I've never said this before, but I didn't know how big Cannes was until I did it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, in the beginning, it felt like just another campaign.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, exciting, red carpet, da da da. I'm going to go to Cannes. I love south of France, da da da. And then I think I didn't realize what that moment meant until I'd achieved it, and it went viral in the Indian press.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, it's that big. Oh, it's been seen for that many years. Like, you know, for me, it was like, I want to watch really good film, because Cannes is a film festival.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like, I want to watch really good film and go with this amazing brand and experience this whole thing. And yeah, I think being naive about it a little bit helped with not putting too much pressure on myself and not being too scared. Because I remember my very first red carpet, I was winking at the cameraman.
I remember that.
Like, it was something people are like, wait, did you wink in your very first Cannes red carpet?
And now you do it every year.
Yeah, and then like, sorry, people don't like, you know, have that kind of confidence that early on. I'm like, I guess I didn't know how big it was. But it was really a moment that I will cherish forever, for sure. Yeah.
And ever since, there have been, you know, every year you've walked the same red carpet. I know the most recent one, which a lot, I remember we were at lunch when you posted the image, and everybody spoke about it and said, this is just amazing. That she shared the fact that something so unfortunate had happened just out of the blue. So for those of you who don't know, you had a swelling in your face the day you landed at Cannes. Again, I think you turned it around. Great knack for doing that.
Thank you.
How was that? Well, I know you were super emotional when it happened. Walk me through this most recent experience.
Yeah. So again, it was thanks to Diipa Büller-Khosla, who picked up a bacterial infection at daycare and then gave it to me and my sister together. And it was like, I started off with a sore throat. I'm like, fine, I'll make it. Like, I'll just, you know, go to Cannes, do the thing, make it. The sore throat slowly became a fever, a very bad fever. And then the morning of the red carpet, I kind of feel crap, but I'm like, I'm just going to put a lot of paracetamols in me. I'll just do the day. And then I'm like going to the bathroom, and I look at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, what? Who is that? Is that Shrek? Like, it was literally, my face was swollen fully. And even my team was like, okay, we're not going to overreact because Diipa's going to go crazy. But they were all, I could see it in their faces. They're like, what just happened to her? And I'm like panicking, of course. I'm like, now what? What am I going to do? Da, 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 da. And of course, I call my mom and video call her. And I'm like, Mommy, like, I'm like bawling and bawling. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm just going to take a flight back and I'm done with this. And I almost get teary now. But she said something really beautiful. And she was like, do you think you got to the Cannes red carpet because of how you look? She's like, no. You know, it's not just that. It is because of your perseverance, of your courage, of what you stand for, the representation. And I think when she said that, I was like, she's right. Like, and there's going to be so many girls around the world, and Cannes might not be it. It could be an interview. It could be a date. It could be a presentation in university, that you're going to have to perform, that you just show up. Like, at some times in life, you just show up. And it could be a pimple or a face swelling, or that you just don't feel like it or off day, you know. And I'm like, this is gonna be an iconic moment where people will one day be like, if Deepa can do can, you know,
Like, yeah.
I'm gonna go with that acne on my forehead for that interview.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it was because of that it made me go out. But it was still so difficult.
Yeah.
Like in the makeup chair, I was like, unbearable tears, like
course.
just kept
Yeah.
crying. Even the makeup artist got angry at me. She's like, "Can you stop, please? I have done your makeup too many times."
No, but you should know this that already, and I'm telling you this from first-hand experience. We were at lunch, literally all of us, and your post came up, and everybody said that this is just amazing, and you should know that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're inspiring young girls everywhere to overlook their flaws, even if temporary, even if permanent, to go out there and just show up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it's, if I could assign a word for your can appearances, I would say iconic, because I remember the one after you delivered and you were breastfeeding. And I still remember that, and I was like, I can't, like, I don't even know how she's doing it. But obviously, before we get to that, we have to get to everyone's favorite, let's be honest. Everybody was most excited about Dua.
Yeah.
Even here. I've been asked 10 times, is she coming? How is the experience? And how is it like being a mother, a working mother, somebody who's as, if not more, driven to create impact, to make a change? You've obviously started a business, which we're going to get into, but also being a mother. Can you run me through the process?
I think it was a lot more of everything than I imagined. I mean, the downs and the highs. It was just a lot more. When I first got pregnant and we were very excited, I'm like, ooh, pregnant, it's gonna be great. It was not great. I was not a good pregnant woman. I was so sick for the first 3 months, and all of that was very difficult. And then there were a few months that were blissful because I had great energy and everything was great. But then again, towards the end, I was so big. Like I was literally, I think my stomach was this big, and just walking like a goose the whole time, and it was very, very difficult. But that was literally a walk in the park compared to what came after. Labor.
I know. I mean, I don't know. I've not given birth. I know from you.
I do not know how so many women go through that traumatic experience, and our mind just makes us forget. Like even now, I don't even remember it. I'm like, it was all great. It was traumatic. I was as animalistic as an animal can be. Like I lost all sense of social construct or like being polite, or I was just an animal with the job of giving birth. And it was the most rawest, purest, but hardest thing I've ever done in my life, by far. Wow. And then after comes, this beautiful baby in your arm, and you forget everything. It's so funny how we are built that everything you go through is just forgotten. You're like, and now this baby's here. And even Oleg and I, like our love got a whole new dimension. Like we always very much love each other, but this was like an added dimension to the whole thing that I don't know how to explain in words, but it just gives it something else. It's like our love in a human being, and the initial months were, again, very, very difficult, like breastfeeding, It's the tiredness, the sleepless nights, all of that. But you're right. I think it has inspired me even more to do more, to be an example to her, to, leave an impact in the world. And even with everything I do now, I'm conscious of things like, is this going to make the world better for the next generation? And is it going to leave the planet better? Which I never had that much before. Like I was just like taking from the world. I'm like, I'll take the awards, I'll take the thing and take. There's been a shift in my mind where it's more about giving now as well, where I want to give back to the world and leave it for the next. Yeah, for sure.
She's so cute.
Thank you.
We're going to be inserting like a slideshow photos.
Yeah. She is. She really, that's, I think, the cuteness of like a mixed baby. It's like they just take the two
and the
cute
little fountain
things.
head.
Yeah.
Like
that
hair.
became her signature hairstyle. She was born with a full head of hair. So we're like, okay, let's just put it up in cute little ponies, like Agnes from the Despicable Me.
Yeah. Oh my God, she's so cute.
Yeah,
Anyway,
thank you.
Yeah. So that's baby number one. Let's
Yeah.
come to baby number two. You've just launched your brand. It is going to be shortly released, or by the time this episode comes, I think it would be on Nykaa in the wild. I saw the video, the opening, like the one that introduced the world to the brand, and I felt like it was so raw and so real. The two terms that came to my head.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that, and
you.
congratulations on raising your funding for your business. I always believe that a business is like a child. Humans of Bombay is my baby. How does it feel? And walk us through your second baby, the thought process, everything.
So the second baby took a little longer to create than the first one. It took almost, I think, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, and the entire time in a pandemic. So I don't know any better. Like when people talk about supply chain issues and this, that, I'm like, I just know that. I know when it was really bad. And having to raise fully online and having to do everything online. But I think the idea of In the Wild was always a seed in my mind. And I really feel like I was destined to create this because of so many touch points. Like my mom being an Ayurvedic doctor and dermatologist, and me growing up in that world, to like struggling with acne myself for 12 years and trying everything, and like at the end finding the cure within the combination of Ayurveda with modern dermatology was what worked for me, you know? And then 3, I think being an influencer online that has spoken about so many of the things that In the Wild stands true for, it was an authentic, like no one founded a disjointed connect. It was like, of course she's the founder of this brand because I've always spoken about those things forever, you know? So I think all those things came together for the idea, and then the creation of it was a whole different ballgame. I always was like, oh, I love business. That was child's play. Like this was real. Like even raising, I'd never raised in my life before. Like no one taught me about it. Like I had to Google everything. And sometimes I even remember investor calls with the like biggest investors in the world asking me something, and I'm like quickly Googling that acronym on the side, being like, our LTV is doing really well. No idea what but so I think I learned so much in the process. And I think the branding as well, just looking at every aspect of the brand to make sure, you know, that I've given love and thought to everything. It's not just a white label product with Diipa Khosla, make a quick buck out, you know. It was really like, it's something that needs to outlive me for sure.
And now, how do you juggle all of this? How do you juggle the baby, the new business, the husband? Also,
the husband.
The husband is there. But also the I'm sure you're continuing to work on campaigns with other brands. So that's a very, very hectic, multifaceted life. How are you doing it?
I will answer that to you when I figure it out. No, I think it's still very much work in progress. It is no days like the other. I am actually also making a lot of mistakes in it, to be honest. Like the balance has not been struck. I also believe the whole can incident for a reason is because it's just too much is happening and too many sides I was being pulled into. And I think what I've learned from that incident today, what I can give you already is I've learned to say no a lot more than ever before, especially for things that I feel like don't give me what I need in this chapter in life, you know? Like, for example, a lot of the influencer stuff, I have achieved a lot. I have achieved like everything an influencer would want, I've ticked those boxes. So for me to just do it for the 7th time, the 8th time, doesn't serve me anymore. Like in this chapter, I want to focus on my child and my other child because I think this is my legacy, you know, and Dua is my life, of course. So for me, these two take the priority. And when it comes to my personal brand, it really is about creating content more for the audience that moves them and touches them and gives them a peek into this journey of what I'm doing, more than brand. Like, I really have never said more to no brands in my life. And that, in a way, comes full circle because I started off wanting any brand to give me a deal for even 200 euros or anything, I'll just do it. And now it's like, I think you're better finding someone else because my focus is just on this. And there are, of course, having said that, a few brands I truly love and a few events in the year that are very close to me that I will do, and the brands that I will support because their vision or their team or there's something in them that connects me, and I will continue doing that with those. But I think striking the balance is the most important thing now. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And congratulations. It actually just looks so pretty. I can't wait
Thank
to try
you.
it out. Okay, so we have a really fun one word or one sentence answer that we're going to look for you from.
Okay.
It's called Things You Can't Find About Me on Google.
Oh, God. Okay.
So what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Oh, hug Oleg because he's in bed next to me.
Has any movie or TV show character influenced you? If yes, who?
Harvey Specter.
Suits.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're stressed?
Take a shower, a really long shower, warm shower.
Who is your go-to person? I think you've answered that.
I think, yeah, between Nan and Mom, I would switch.
Who's the first person you call when you have any good news to share?
Oleg.
What's your biggest fear?
Dying average.
Are you a strict or a lenient parent?
I think so far lenient.
Which is your favorite holiday destination?
Cape Town or Thailand.
Okay. Are you a tea or a coffee drinker?
Tea.
What's your comfort food?
Biryani.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl.
A party outdoors or a movie indoors?
Depends. But party outdoors.
India or Netherlands?
India.
Oleg the dad or Oleg the husband?
Ooh. Oleg the husband.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
Even his videos are very cute.
Yeah. He's a fantastic dad, but he's a better husband, I think, to me. Yeah.
Okay, so for this next segment, we're going to show you a couple of photos and we want to hear the backstory about what was going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This one was, I think, 2-3 months after I gave birth to Dua. And like I said, my body was like this big. I'd never seen my skin stretch so much in my life, or of course not. And just everything around it was just so new. So this whole idea for this holiday in the Maldives was to kind of take a breather after everything we'd gone through. And I remember like every morning kind of looking at my stomach, hoping it to like miraculously get better or go away. And I think this photo was to show me accepting it, me accepting that it's never gonna go back to how it looked. Maybe it'll look a lot better. Maybe like now 1 year in, it looks very good, but still there's loose skin and still there's stretch marks. And I don't think it's ever gonna go back to how it used to. And it was a bit of a realization that I'm different. Like I'm a mom and these are my like, I guess, war scars in a way of everything that I've been through. And I'm still coming to terms with it, but it was just like put it out there, like show it, because so many women are going through that, you know? So yeah.
And the absolute last question, and it's been such a great interview. Everybody here even enjoyed it so much, I can't wait for it to be out on YouTube. Is what advice would you give 12-year-old Deepa?
I would tell her to learn to love herself faster. I think when you do that, when you truly love yourself, the world flows your way.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's not at the end of the day about anything else. It's just about really truly feeling that you're awesome. And also with India Wild, our slogan, you know, difference is your superpower. I think if she would understand that faster, she would have had a much nicer teenage years and a much nicer everything. But today I can confidently say I do love myself, and I just hope she would as well. Yeah.
So sweet. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing this,
you.
Deepa. I know you've
Thank
been on
you.
a very hectic schedule, but I'm glad. And we met after
Yes.
2 or 3 years
That's
of
the
talking.
best
We
thing about
finally
this.
met.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for doing
Of
this.
course.
And to everybody who's watching, I think this was one of the most real and intimate conversations. And I'm super excited for everything that you're building.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. Thank you all for being the best community, and I'll see you soon.
Like I always these days say jokingly, right? If you want to make people happy with you, you should start off by disappointing them so much that they have no expectations left of you. When they have no expectations left, you'll only make them happy. You can never disappoint them. So in a sense, that's what defined my journey. There were no expectations.